What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about how I think indies are having a pretty incredible year so far in 2026. In fact, I can pretty easily say that the most enjoyable experiences I have had so far this year have all been indie titles. And while there have been a few bigger games that I've enjoyed, indies are really stealing the show for me at the moment, and I kind of just wanted to talk about that a little bit because with the sort of mid-year announcements coming up, this is the kind of thing I tend to sort of organize my thoughts around. Personally, as somebody who reviews games, I pretty much divide the year up into two halves based on when the typical announcement shows happen and when we get our release dates. That's typically right at the start of June and then right around December. This is mostly for practical reasons because the shows that happen in December typically give you your release dates for the first part of the next year, and then the announcement shows in June usually give you the release dates for everything happening in the back half of the year, pending, of course, as always, various changes and the like. So as a result, I just pay really close attention to those things so I can organize my schedule around them, and it's usually when I'll take a moment to stop and take stock of everything that is going on thus far. And in so doing, this year, I would say the first half has, of course, gone to the indies, and I wanted to talk about a few things there, of course, which ones I'm enjoying the most, obviously, but also I did want to point out that like big AAA gaming type releases have not really had much of a chance to shine in the first half of the year either, which has made their absence relatively easy to fill with all of these other wonderful games that are usually cheaper. Now, that's not to say we haven't seen any. We've seen stuff like Crimson Desert, which was a lot of fun, but had some flaws personally. I didn't play it, but Resident Evil Requiem came out. Neo 3 was a lot of fun for me, but I would personally say that Neo 2 is still the better game. There's also been a couple things that have released, but I have been like PlayStation exclusives, and this is a PC channel, like the upcoming Seros, which releases in like a couple days. And I basically just wanted to mention that because with the absence of, again, these like really big blockbuster releases, there has been, for the most part, pretty wide open points where the attention economy is not solely focused on these individual things. But I do fully expect that to change come the start of June. So with the upcoming showcases for all the different publishers, developers, etc. that happen now, as opposed to just having E3, we should more than likely get the release dates for all of the big game releases that are supposed to be coming this year, but we don't actually have the release dates for. Though I suppose we'll certainly see. I've already heard a bunch of rumblings around everyone trying to dance around the release date of GTA 6, so I suppose we'll wind up seeing what happens there in the end, I guess. But either way, I try to always be reviewing something, regardless of the release schedule, be those old games, new games, small games, whatever, I don't really care. But either way, as a result, I've reviewed a fair few indie games this year, obviously, and I wanted to talk about some of my favorites thus far. In fact, I would say, if I were forced to pick a game of the year right this moment, it would probably be a toss-up between Banquet for Fools or Esoteric Ebb, which I'll get to in just a moment, but first let's talk about another great one, Mouse PI for Hire, the black and white rubber hose animation style boomer shooter that I think could use a couple more quality of life improvements, but this game honestly probably had an easy chance to impress me more generally because this is the type of game I play when I'm looking to sort of break up all the RPG reviews with something a little more straightforward. And in that sense, it was exactly what the doctor ordered. I had a blast playing through this one. It was a ton of fun, and I can usually tell that a game has been pretty good if I walk away from it basically just thinking that I wish they would adjust some things so I could more easily play more of this. Either way, though, I had a lot of fun with it, and if it wasn't for the fact that these other games that have come out are a little more my speed in terms of genre and stuff, it would also probably be up there. But I mentioned my current game of the year thinking is between Banquet for Fools or Esoteric Ebb. Now, I'll be very blunt with people every time. Banquet for Fools is fantastic if you are looking for a very particular type of experience, and otherwise you'll probably have a bad time with it because there's a pretty big knowledge hurdle you have to get over. But if you can get past that, what you're met with is a wonderfully weird little world that does some unique stuff with its sort of odd beat-em-up meets real-time with pause combat system. But I think what really sold me on it personally was just the incredibly strange world you get to explore and get to the bottom of the strange occurrences nuances that are happening here. There's a lot of lore and depth to it, but also it doesn't do anything to like push that stuff in your face, which makes a lot of it feel more mysterious and leads to the sense of discovery. And it really is remarkable that this game was basically made by two people. But in a somewhat similar vein, albeit with a very different approach to things like combat encounters, we also then have Esoteric Ebb. Esoteric Ebb was a game that really resonated with me in a big way, not least of which because I really enjoyed the sense of humor at play here. But a narrative RPG utilizing a sort of adaptation of like Dungeons & Dragons 5e for its base systems, while at the same time throwing you into a very interesting setting and an interesting time at that, as most humans have been wiped out by some events that had already happened, and there's not only an election but a mysterious, let's say, incident that occurs, which serves as the crux of the investigation you're here on official business trying to solve as the cleric. Either way though, it's been a ton of fun, and I kind of just wanted to take a minute to highlight the fact that pretty much everything I've enjoyed this year has been smaller titles, and so many of them have been releasing that I haven't even had the chance to cover them all. There's some I'm already having to double back for, which is hardly surprising. There are, at this point, thousands of games released per year, and I cover maybe 50 or so of them in like review form, obviously more than that, and just general videos. Now, looking forward to the rest of the year, there are some, of course, expected bigger game releases that may well steal the show, I'm sure, but honestly, I've been having a good time either way. With that said, I would love to know what games you personally have enjoyed the most so far this year, as I certainly haven't played everything, and I know some of the games I didn't play actually did pretty well, such as, again, Resident Evil Requiem, Pragmata more recently, etc. But either way, that of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.